What's up everyone, this is FP Sticks, and in today's video I'm going to be bringing you my highly anticipated Great League team that I have been running for a long time now here in the Great League for Season 6. This team has given me multiple 5-0s. It's given me a win streak of 15. I have about a 73% win rate right now, and I'm very close to reaching rank 19. And I've been having a lot of fun running this team of Toxicroak, Return Sableye, so Purified Sableye, and then Skarmory in the back. Today's video is going to be extremely long and a very in-depth analysis of this team. Very Caleb Pang-esque. I'm going to be breaking down a lot of different matchups that you might encounter with this team. I feel like this team has a very high skill cap, being the fact that you have to be very good at your energy management, knowing your counts, and you're going to see a lot of plays in this video where I'm playing extremely aggressive with my swaps and doing everything that I can to try to preserve my Pokemon here. So very aggressive gameplay and good energy management in here. So before we get started, if you do appreciate this long kind of in-depth analysis, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. This video took a long time to make. For those of you that have been tuning into my Twitch live streams, you've seen me have been using this team a lot of really hyped games, and so let's go over this footage. I'm going to be talking about a lot of different matchups with this team. So the main reason I love this team is that it hard counters grass hole users, that being Bastiodon and then double Shadow Razor Leafers in the back. Obviously Toxicroak lead essentially has play against that entire team. It's also very powerful against a Galarian Stunfisk lead. So typically my opponents will swap out of that matchup, but especially with the Galarian Stunfisk, if they do opt to stay in there and they get a little fancy with their baits, it's a little bit more sketchy. So if they do stay in there, I count to 8 and try to throw the Mud Bomb on the CMP tie if they're going for the Earthquake there. But you can see very hard counter lead there with the Stunfisk. I'm able to fully farm down the Meganium with my Skarmory, which is really good for me. That's such a hard counter matchup that I don't throw any energy. Right there, you see me aggressively give up swap. I preserve the energy on my Skarmory. I was at 100 health, so I switch out of there because I don't want to be farmed down by the Stunfisk. And now my Sableye is against this Azumarill here. This is actually totally fine. Even though I totally just sack my Sableye here, I'm recognizing that a double shielded Toxicroak is going to be my key to victory here. If I would have stayed in with Skarmory and allowed the Stunfisk to mudshot me down, my Toxicroak is in a lot more danger. So because I preserved the health with my Skarmory there, I'm able to essentially get off 2 Brave Birds. Now I bring in the Toxicroak, I'll shield up this Play Rough, and at this point all I need to do is just counter down or land 1 Mud Bomb here. But even though I had pretty solid alignment there, obviously Toxicroak on Stunfisk is very good, and Skarmory against Meganium is super hard counter. A really nice play there was switching out, preserving the Skarmory there. Alright, another Stunfisk lead again. My opponent plays this extremely well, so they switch into Surfetched. I'm going to switch into Skarmory here because if they're running Night Slash and Leaf Blade, this is slightly less threatening. If I were to bring in my Sableye, the Leaf Blade is actually fairly threatening because Surfetched outputs so much damage. So I preserve a lot of health on my Skarmory. I don't fully commit to the farm, and that's because I don't want to be in a low enough health range where the opposing Galarian Stunfisk can commit to a full Mudshot farm. I'm going to throw the Brave Bird here. My opponents still cannot commit to mudshotting me down, so they will throw energy here. But look at this play. Huge heads up play. Undercharge the Rock Slide. I could have possibly swapped out there to avoid being farmed down, but now my Toxicroak is very worried. Obviously 2 shields are up, so this is most likely a Rock Slide bait, but it's very risky to no shield. If I get hit by if I got hit by an Earthquake there, that would have been very tough to come back from. I have my Sableye on the Toxicroak, and this is pretty favorable for me. At this point, I do want to save the last shield for my Toxicroak. My opponent does get in an extra counter there, which is not great. I want to save the shield for my Toxicroak because I know that the Stunfisk still has so much loaded energy. So I have to let this go, and then I'm going to fully commit to the counter down against this Toxicroak. I know I'm going to shield, but because the Stunfisk already threw a Rock Slide, it can't have an Earthquake. It's 2 mud shots away, and since I have back-to-back mud bombs, I'm going to be able to get both of these moves off before my opponent is able to get to an Earthquake. Good game there. My opponent played that extremely well, though. They were pretty much right at the Earthquake there. Did everything they could. All right. You love to see it. So obviously, like, these first couple of matchups, I'm just showing you how the team was purely designed, and it's to beat these team comps that have these steel types in the lead. So obviously, Toxicroak into Bastiodon is very favorable. Here, I'm waiting out the switch clock as long as possible. You see me throwing a fast move every now and then because sometimes the game has this error where if you're not throwing fast moves enough, it's like it's not even updating if your opponent is throwing fast moves. But the reason I'm waiting out the switch clock is because I know the Bastiodon's going to come in, and I want to preserve this Skarmory. So I'm actually going to use my Sableye safe swap here, and then the opponent just leaves the game because at that point I saved my Skarmory, and I'm going to be able to align the Toxicroak against the Bastiodon. Here's another Bastiodon match here. Don't worry, we'll get into plenty of hard counter leads to come. But this is like the dream scenario, Skarmory into a Razor Leaf Tropius. This again is a matchup that you can fully fast move down, not throw any energy. And this is actually even better because you want to give the Bastiodon less farm. And I love that my opponent is throwing charge moves here because it's just way less farm for the Bastiodon. I think I throw Brave Bird immediately here. So the Bastiodon... Oh, I definitely think they made a misclick here because for some reason they brought out Victory Bell. And then they have to shield that. I guess they're trying to Razor Leaf it down and get a jump start to energy, but they have to shield this. So they must have misclicked or they lagged or something and the game brought this in, but that is not what you want to see. At this point, I just need to get to a foul play with my Sableye, and that should be a pretty clean, good game. There's the Bastiodon swap, and there's nothing my opponent can do here. Again, this team that I designed, I hate playing against Bastiodon and then double Razor Leafers. I hate playing against that team. So, you know, if you don't like losing to a particular team comp, build a team that can handle it and quit complaining about losing to a particular team. Just build a team that can handle it, and that's what I enjoyed doing with this, so I'm able to take this out. All right, here's some different matchups now. Toxicroak into... Okay, so this is like the reverse version of this team. Sometimes I'm able to pull this off, sometimes I'm not. The tricky thing is that Toxicroak cannot beat Victory Bell in the 2 shield because the Razor Leaf damage is so strong. So I throw a Mud Bomb, burn a shield, switch into Sableye here, and they throw right as I'm receiving the energy for the foul play, so I'm not able to CMP. Oh, I actually am able to get this off, thank goodness. But as you will see, they double shield the Victory Bell, which is terrible for me. My opponent made a huge mistake there and stayed in and allowed their Victory Bell to be farmed down. Now essentially I am going to be able to control what gets aligned with what. So I can bring my Skarmory out here. Skarmory is a pure sacrifice. I'm saving my shield for Toxicroak. Typically, so my opponent made a huge mistake in here by not preserving the Victory Bell. Typically, my opponents that are running that Victory Bell lead, they will swap out and preserve it, and then it's very tough for me to win that game there. All right, let's get one more shot at it. I don't think I win this game here. So it takes 9 Razor Leafs to get to Leaf Blade. They get an extra one through there, but the Razor Leaf damage is just too much for my Toxicroak to stay in here. So I switch out. This time they actually bring out Bastiodon instead of what I'm assuming to be possibly a Defense Deoxys in the back. So this is actually really nice for me because my Skarmory gets to avoid this. I think this is the game where I make it. Okay, no, we're good. I'm going to bring the Toxicroak in to farm this down. This energy is going to be very, very nice. I do have to shield this up though. Oh, I actually no-shield that. Because I'm still able to farm it down. I knew that I would survive the flamethrower. The reason that I no-shielded it is because I am anticipating that it is possibly like a Deoxys in the back, but it's actually an Azumarill. So this is definitely a different variation of the inverted grass hole team here. Typically people will run like a Vigoroth or a Defense Deoxys in that middle safe swap spot. And the Victory Bell acid sprayed me, which really sucks because now these bubbles are doing extra damage. But as you can see here, I'm always trying to get an extra fast move through. I'm always trying to get an extra air slash through. And then make sure you check out Wallower's video on fast move denial, especially when you're going up against an opponent that has the same turn duration fast move as you. Air slash is 3 turns, bubble is 3 turns as well. Gives you good opportunities to practice. I swap in a Toxicroak to clear the debuff. I'm able to barely take that game. Toxicroak into Tropius. So if it's Razor Leaf Tropius, this isn't that bad. Again, they get to Leaf Blade at 9 Razor Leafs, and they got an extra one through. I just go straight Sludge Bomb here, and then swap the Sableye. Now, Razor Leaf Tropius in the lead, there's a variety of different things that could be in the back. I no-shield the Leaf Blade here. In hindsight, I feel like this is actually a huge mistake. Because my opponent already committed an early shield, I should have mirrored shields as well just to play this a little bit safer. But my opponent brings in a Galarian Stunfisk because they want to avoid the Toxicroak matchup, which is great. But I have a Skarmory in the back, so this is amazing that my Skarmory did not have to see this Stunfisk. I'm actually just going for a complete farm down here. I know the Tropius already threw energy, so if I can fully farm this down, I'm going to have another Sludge Bomb to threaten the Tropius. Most likely, Tropius is going to be coming in. There it is. I immediately go for Sludge Bomb, and then no matter what, I'm pretty much going to switch into Skarmory at this point. And it's actually a Deoxys in the back, so Tropius, Deoxys, Galarian Stunfisk. Makes sense why they brought the Stunfisk onto my Sableye instead of the Deoxys, because that would not be a good matchup for Deoxys. Sometimes my opponents will actually fully stay in with Tropius against my Sableye, and that's actually pretty bad for me when that happens, because my Skarmory is not able to see the matchup that it wants to see. But at this point, I am over farming a little bit. At this range, Sky Attack should KO. Down goes the Defense Deoxys, and then I actually switch into my Toxicroak here because I want to force this Tropius to throw a move. And this is going to allow me to get to the Sky Attack just barely. Very, very close game. Able to come back from that bad lead there. Good game. Toxicroak into another Tropius. So you got to see if it's Razor Leaf or Air Slash. So it is Razor Leaf. Again, you get to the Sludge Bomb before they get to the first charge move, and they typically just stay in here because this is a somewhat favorable matchup for Tropius. If it's an Air Slash Tropius, I think I have one of those in this video as well, and I think I tend to stay in and throw the Sludge Bomb there as well, but eventually you got to make some sort of a swap into Sableye to try to mix up the alignment and potentially bait out a Galarian Stunfisk in the back. So this time around, I actually ended up staying in, burning both shields. There's the Galarian Stunfisk. You love to see it. Now, Sableye, I feel like is just bulky enough here that the opponent can't fully mud shot down. They have to throw energy here, which is good for me. I'm going to no-shield this. My Toxicroak has enough health that it should be able to cleanly get to a Mud Bomb here. I am going to get outpaced. For some reason, my opponent over-farms there. They definitely had the Rock Slide. Probably because they want more farm with their Tropius, but I blind swap into Skarmory. I've already seen Galarian Stunfisk, so at this point, I know that my Skarmory is going to be the key to success. I don't know why my opponent stayed in there for so long to allow me to farm with my Skarmory, but totally fine by me. One Sky Attack and one Brave Bird should seal the deal here against the Azumarill. I think this Brave Bird actually doesn't even... Yeah, it barely doesn't KO. My gosh, Azumarill is just an absolute monster. But I will shield this, Air Slash down, and there's really nothing that Tropius can do. So able to come back from that Razor Leaf Tropius lead again. I very rarely bait in that opening. I'd like almost never bait because it's just so risky. If it does not get shielded, it's terrible. All right, here's another Tropius. It's another Razor Leaf, so this is good for me. Again, gonna go straight for the Sludge Bomb. They do get an extra Razor Leaf through, so they are at 9 right now. They're at the Leaf Blade. Gonna immediately swap into Sableye. They throw a Leaf Blade here. Because they threw so early, I no shield this first one. I think this is the opponent that actually plays this very, very heads up and stays in with the... yeah, this is really not good for me. So you actually saw me stop attacking there, and it's because I want more farm with my Skarmory. So that was not lag. So they're going to throw a move here to run out the... or give them some time to think, but they most likely switched right now. Oh, that's definitely some lag. You love to see it. I'm able to air slash down the Tropius. It is a Galarian Stunfisk in the back, and it's their own Sableye in back. So this is really not great for my Toxicroak. My opponent just made a really nice heads-up play and stayed in with their Razor Leaf Tropius. The more matches that I play against Razor Leaf Tropius, I really think that I should start mirroring shields with my Sableye. If my opponent has already shielded one of my moves from Toxicroak, it doesn't really make sense for me to just absorb a Leaf Blade there. So that is a mistake and something that I think I can improve on my gameplay with this team. I definitely should shield that up. And unfortunately, there's just no way that my Skarm's going to be able to take that out. Good game. Really heads-up play by my opponent there. Toxicroak into Tropius. I think this is the last Tropius match. I know we've been seeing a lot of Tropius. This is Air Slash. It's not great. They get an extra Air Slash through there, so they should be at 5 right now. I'm going to immediately throw the Sludge Bomb. They do shield. I, once again, am going to Insta-swap to my Sableye. Now, because this is Air Slash and not Razor Leaf, the fast move is not as threatening. So I don't shield the first one. I will shield the second one, though, and then most likely my opponent is going to switch out. They actually switch into their own Sableye. I am still kind of assuming that there could be a Galarian Stunfisk in the back because Tropius and Galarian Stunfisk is a very common pairing. My opponent might fully commit to the farm down here, which is pretty bad for me. Oh, they actually throw right here. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. So at this point, I can kind of safely bring in Skarmory to farm this down. I might have to get hit by one foul play, but that's okay. Yeah, this is totally fine. This is totally fine. I'm operating under the assumption that there's a Galarian Stunfisk in the back. And whatever happens, I'm just going to blind swap into Toxicroak. It's actually their own Umbreon in the back. And because I blind swap so quickly here, I'm going to throw this Sludge Bomb. It's going to do so much damage against the Tropius. It actually takes it out. There's that Umbreon. And I am not going to be able to get to a Sludge Bomb, so I have to throw this Mud Bomb just for any chip damage that I can get. My Toxicroak barely survives there, and I really need to get to a Brave Bird against this Umbreon. I know it has a lot of energy, but no matter what, just shield up one of these moves, get to the Brave Bird, and this should be a pretty clean win here. I think this was the last Tropius example, but I do want to provide you all with plenty of examples of me losing the lead and then still being able to come back in that matchup, and it's because the power of Sableye. Alright. Toxicroak into Swampert. Man, this is a tough lead here because Swampert outpaces Toxicroak to these charge moves. So I am trying to get in an extra counter through wherever I can. Swampert alternates between 5 and 4 mud shots getting these Hydro Cannons, so just cleanly outpaces Toxicroak. Toxicroak can barely tank one Hydro Cannon, but then that puts you in mud shot farm down range, which is not great. So I'm going to overfarm a little bit more. Gonna throw this Mud Bomb here and see if my opponent wants to double shield. If they do, this is very tough. So I'm gonna switch into Sableye. Sableye is gonna have to tank a Hydro Cannon here. Most likely the Swampert swaps out at this point. They have a Skarmory in the back, so I'm assuming that they're going to fully commit to air slashing me down. That is okay. I know the Swampert dumped most of its energy, and I can bring in my own Skarmory to negate this energy that the Skarmory has farmed up here. They actually throw energy here, which is great for me because I actually would have gotten to another move. Now here, ideally, I need to leave this with as much stored energy as possible because I want to guarantee that my Skarmory can outpace the Swampert. They go for the Brave Bird, and this gives me the green light to fully farm it down. I almost have 100 energy here. If it's Swampert, Sky Attack will take it out. But I'm waiting to see what it is. It's actually a Medicham. And so I throw the Brave Bird, and then I think I swap right here. Yes, I want to counter it down, and then I'm actually able to counter down the Swampert and then counter down the Medicham. So able to come back from that Swampert lead, burn both shields, swap into Sableye, mix it up, see what happens, and I was able to take that game there. Toxicroak into Swampert again. So again, I'm going to try to sneak in some extra counters here. But my opponent is being very smart and not throwing right away. They almost have back-to-back here. So I'm going to throw my Mud Bomb here. They actually let that go through. So I'm going to go into a 2-shield deficit. 2-shield deficit. Now, many times when I win the lead very hard with Toxicroak, if they come in with something... So they come in with Pelipper. I don't want to get farmed down here. So I think I'm going to switch to Sableye right there. So even though I won the lead, I was down 2 shields, and then I just give up swap right here. Whole reason being is I want to see what they have in the back. If there's a Stunfisk in the back, I gotta bait it out so my Skarmory doesn't have to see it. And because I preserved a good amount of health on my Toxicroak, I'm in a totally fine spot here. I can now come in and farm with my Skarmory is probably the safest option here. Because I want as much energy. Oh, I actually bring in my Toxicroak because I want to force them to throw their energy. Now I can safely bring in Skarmory, farm this down, and Skarmory with loaded energy is going to be able to threaten the Pelipper just fine. Really, all I need to do is land a Sky Attack, because then the Air Slashes are going to be enough to take this thing out. So you see me farming. I'm trying to get to back here. I can tank that Weather Ball, no problem. They're going to need 2 more, and that's just not going to happen because I am now at back, and I know this Pelipper does not have another Weather Ball. So I know this is going to get the shield. They actually just let it go because they know it's game over at that point. Good game. Toxicroak into Swampert again. We'll see how this plays out. I went down 2 shields last time. This time the opponent switches into Galvantula. Galvantula is a huge problem for this team. Huge problem for this team. You essentially have to take it out with all 3 of your Pokemon, and Toxicroak kind of is my best response here. They no-shield that, thank goodness. I'm going to no-shield this and hope that I can Shadow Claw down. Because they went for Discharge there and not Lunge, that actually allowed me to Shadow Claw down. So I'm actually in a pretty good spot here. Swampert does have a lot of loaded energy though. They bring out Skarmory, and so at this point I know that I can keep my Toxicroak aligned with the Swampert, and my Toxicroak doesn't have to see this Skarmory at all. Look how much damage this Sableye is putting out. I know there's a question of like, can I use a Sableye that doesn't have return? You can, but I don't think it's going to perform nearly as well. I should go for a sacrificial swap here on my Toxicroak because I knew it was kind of dead weight at this point. And I'm just going to save both shields for my Skarmory, and this should be able to cleanly win the match. But in some of these upcoming matches, you'll see my opponent will switch an Azumarill onto my Sableye, and this is where like return is really useful and actually allows you to flip back switch advantage. Also, if you're stuck against like a Scrafty or an Obstagoon or even an Umbreon, return Sableye has a good amount of play against those Pokemon, so return is definitely needed. I believe my Sableye is level 41 right now, and the IVs are 12, 14, 15. So I'm going to be able to power this thing up to level 43 eventually and keep it underneath 1500. Barely able to win that game right there. Good game. Okay, Azumarill leads. These are extremely common, so I almost never bait in this matchup. Oh, okay, my opponent makes a Sableye safe swap, and so the thing with Azumarill leads is that you never really quite know what could be in the back, and this is kind of a big mistake by me right here. So Azumarill double ghost, meaning Sableye and Alolan Marowak, is actually a fairly common team, and when I was playing against this opponent, I did not recognize that soon enough, and so I think what I needed to do is actually bring my Skarmory on to that Sableye there, and then that would allow my Skarmory getting to avoid the Alolan Marowak, because now this Azumarill is able to bubble down my Sableye, and it really didn't threaten the Azumarill that much. And Alolan Marowak beats both of my Pokemon in the back. So I think, as you'll see here, I have to shield this up, unfortunately. And then my opponent reveals the Alolan Marowak. So that was just bad recognition on my part. I've really been thinking a lot about like how I would handle a Sableye safe swap, because my team is actually pretty weak to an opposing Sableye. And so when my opponent swaps in their own Sableye, I think I just need to get into my Skarmory as quickly as possible, because that's a decent matchup for Skarmory there. Okay, here's the Azur lead again. Typically my opponents will stay in here, and I really like when they don't throw Ice Beam right away like this. I like when they build up to Play Rough, which is 6 bubbles, because that allows me to a little bit more cleanly CMP tie there. My team also does not have a direct response to a Skarmory safe swap, so I'm forced to mirror here, but at least my Toxicroak gets to avoid the Skarmory, and because the couple of counters I got off on this opposing Skarmory, I should be able to win this. If I can sneak in an Air Slash through like I did right there, that puts me in even more of a favorable scenario. I know even if I win this matchup here, Azumarill is going to come in and farm down, which is not ideal. So I think I let this go. And then, oh, I actually shield this, okay. And then I want to fully commit to the farm on this Skarmory and kind of just see what they have in the back. I know they have Azumarill. It's a Galarian Stunfisk. This is really bad. I'm going to immediately swap it to my Sableye. Out comes the Azumarill. I am down 2 shields here. I know that my Skarmory still has a lot of energy, which is really good for me. And because they switch into their Azumarill here, they no-shield the return, which does an unbelievable amount of damage. I somehow need to get a pretty significant energy advantage with my Toxicroak here to be able to threaten that Galarian Stunfisk. Gonna bring in the Toxicroak. I have so much stored energy. At this point, I can easily double Mud Bomb. I'm pretty much capped at 100 energy here. So there's the first shield. There's the set. I'm gonna get the second shield here. My Skarmory has so much loaded energy. If I can get to another Mud Bomb, that's great. But they actually are able to Earthquake me here, which is not good. And then unfortunately they have too much health. So okay, Toxicroak into Azumarill here. So far my opponents have all been switching out of this lead, but most of the time they tend to stay in, and I tend to like to just go straight Sludge Bomb here. Because if the Sludge Bomb connects like this, no matter what, I want to guarantee that I win this lead, because preserving energy, preserving health on Toxicroak tends to be pretty useful for me. Unfortunately, we got some fast move desync here. Normally, I'm supposed to get to that Mud Bomb before they're able to throw another move, but the game slightly lagged, which allowed the Azumarill to throw first. Very unfortunate. I'm down 2 shields in the lead again. This is not great. They bring out Meganium, which is pretty interesting here. Going to go for a pretty aggressive farm down. I have no idea what this team comp could be. Azumarill, Meganium. I try to catch on my Skarmory, but it does not work out. And this brings out the Galarian Stunfisk. So I still have a little bit of health on my Toxicroak, still have a little bit of energy. And it's kind of sketchy throwing the Brave Bird too early here, because it's going to allow the Rock Slides to do more damage. I'm going to throw a Sky Attack here. Ideally, if I can run out this switch clock long enough and mix things up, preserve this energy, that'd be really good for me. But I'm going to throw the Brave Bird here. They can't Mud Shot me down still, so they're going to have to throw a Rock Slide. They let that through, which is pretty wild, and so I immediately switch into Sableye. Out comes Meganium. This is going to be a Frenzy Plant. Sableye can tank a Frenzy Plant, so if I can farm down this Meganium with my Toxicroak, I'll have some nice loaded energy to threaten that Stunfisk. I'm actually going to bring out my Skarmory here because it resists all of the moves against this Meganium, and I'm actually going to throw right here because I want to force them to burn their last shield. They really want to get this energy off on the Skarmory. Frenzy Plant barely does not KO me. I'm able to Air Slash it down. I'm immediately clicking onto my Toxicroak, and I'm barely able to get to this Mud Bomb and take that game. So lots of aggressive switching there, trying to get an energy advantage wherever I can instead of just sticking out with that bad matchup. Okay, another Azumarill lead. Again, I really like when they throw on 6 bubbles because this allows me to kind of cleanly align my fast moves with what they're doing. I get to a Sludge Bomb right as they're receiving the energy for that 5th bubble. So if they don't throw Ice Beam here, if they throw Play Rough, this actually turns into even more of a favorable matchup for me. So I'm keeping track of their energy. Whenever they get to 5 bubbles, like after the first one, is when I'm throwing because that's when they get to move. So here's their move again. This is just an Ice Beam. So it's going to take 5 more for them to get to that move. And as you can see, Toxicroak is able to beat this Azumarill in the 2 shield, going straight Sludge Bomb, no baiting, if you do not allow your opponent to get a fast move through. So right there, my opponent brings in an Alolan Marowak. I don't want to stay in there and get farmed, because Alolan Marowak with a pretty steep energy advantage is just going to sweep my back line. Out comes Vigoroth. Bulldoze is a terrible move, so I'm not too threatened by it. Even though the Shadow Claws are double resisted here, I'm farming up as much as possible. Possibly should have went for the return here. Foul Play is luckily just enough. I'm not able to get to that foul play, so I'm going to have to be very tricky with catching a move on my Toxicroak. That's pretty much my win scenario here. They're farming up a lot of energy. I feel like they might be going for back-to-back. So that's a prime example of me swapping based on my own energy, because my opponent was keeping track of my energy and they threw right before I got to that Brave Bird, which is where I timed my swap. That allowed me to get to this Brave Bird and take that game there. Very good game. Toxicroak into Azumarill once again. So I like to go straight Sludge Bomb here. And again, we never know what's in the back. With an Azumarill lead, oh, unfortunately my opponent is lagging there, so I actually get 2 free counters in. So I do have a pretty significant energy advantage here. We're getting some just beautiful lag here. Absolutely wonderful lag. Just staring at Toxicroak. They are back in the game. No matter what, I will shield this, and I should be able to counter down, especially since they threw Play Rough. I do not mind going into a shield deficit in the lead. They actually bring in their own Toxicroak here, and I have almost 2 Mud Bombs stored. So I'm going to throw that first one, and then I'm just going to switch into Sableye. Azumarill is already off the field, so I'm assuming that Sableye might have some play against what's in the back. This Mud Bomb is not that threatening, but they do have back-to-back. So I will shield this. They're out of energy. I'm expecting a swap, but they're actually staying in. So I'm going to throw this foul play before they can get to another Mud Bomb. See what they want to do. They let it go. In the back is a Stunfisk, and I'm really glad that I preserved my Toxicroak so many times. Stunfisk is like one of the most popular Pokemon in Great League other than Azumarill, right? And typically they're paired together. So if you don't see a Stunfisk in the lead, you can make a pretty safe bet that there might be a Stunfisk in the back. So by kind of throwing my Sableye into the fray there and mixing it up and possibly seeing what they have in the back, it really helps my Skarmory to avoid that negative matchup as much as possible. And preserving the Toxicroak is so clutch for getting as much damage off on this the Stunfisk as possible. Alright, I think this is the last Azumarill matchup. I included a lot of Azumarill leads in here because the backline can be totally different every single time. So kind of seeing how I handle some of these different backlines. They throw the Ice Beam here. Ice Beam Azumarill, this matchup is a little bit scarier, and it is very important that you do not allow your opponent to sneak in a bubble here, because it just makes it way worse. So I'm going to throw the Mud Bomb here, see what they want to do about it. They do shield. I'm able to get an extra counter in right there because it wasn't true CMP. I will go down 2 shields again. That is totally fine by me. This is going to allow me to counter down this Azumarill. Toxicroak with loaded energy is wonderful. They bring out the Alolan Marowak. I preserve all of that health. I also noticed that their Alolan Marowak was running Hex and not Fire Spin. So that's definitely better for my Skarmory in the back. There's the Stunfisk, right? It always comes out when... it's always in the back, man. And so I safe swap the Sableye. Out comes the Stunfisk. I tank the Earthquake. Totally fine by me. And this Shadow Claw and Foul Play damage is really adding up on this Stunfisk. They are still not shielding because they want to get some farm with their Alolan Marowak, but they actually throw energy right here. Beautiful for me. I actually want some energy on my Skarmory. I still have a Mud Bomb stored on my Toxicroak. This is a Hex AWAC. This was too early to be a Fire Blast, so I'm totally fine with that. It's just it's a Shadow Bone. They dropped my defense, so this actually forces me to have to switch out. I'm gonna throw 1 Mud Bomb here. They still no shield, and I'm able to get to another Mud Bomb. They have to shield this at this point, but there's really nothing they can do. They can't Hex me down, so I'm actually able to take that game there. switching the Sableye and baiting out the Stunfisk was crucial. Okay, this is a very tough lead, and so most of the time I immediately swap into Sableye. It's met with an Azumarill. This is a very common matchup that you are going to see when you do switch your Sableye, and this is where having return is so clutch. Any little energy advantage you can get with Sableye is pretty huge in this matchup. And again, it's very important that you do not allow your opponent to sneak in an extra bubble here, because it makes it way worse. So I will double shield here. I want to get shields down, or potentially just regain swap. That would be the dream if they let me win swap here, but they are double shielding. So at this point, I need to get fancy and start making some swaps. So I'm gonna catch a move on my Skarmory. Reason being, I'm not going to have the matchup that I want since my opponent is not going to allow me to win swap. So I need to start making some moves, preserve the Sableye, and we'll see what they have in the back. The Azumarill goes down. Okay, that's great for me. They bring out Altaria, so they do not have a Galarian Stunfisk in the back. This is very interesting. I'm wondering what they have in the back at this point. If I can get this Brave Bird off, it's amazing. My Toxicroak doesn't even have to see this Altaria. My opponent makes a really nice swap into a Superior here. I should have, well, luckily I'm able to bring my Sableye out again, and I really should have possibly gone for double foul play here, but I actually just went for the return. Double foul play easily would have won me this game a little bit cleaner, but Toxicroak can actually tank a Sky Attack, and these counters are adding up for sure. It barely tanks the Sky Attack, and then Skarmory is going to be able to Air Slash this down. So, aggressively switching, constantly trying to get an energy advantage allowed me to win that game. Okay, Altaria lead again. Not great. I don't win all of these games. I do lose some of these games, but I want to show you, especially against these tougher leads. This time, I go for a sack on my Skarmory. Kind of a weird way of playing this, especially if they have a Galarian Stunfisk in the back, which they always do. I really think the better play is to do what I did in the first match and just insta-swap to Sableye. The counter damage from Toxicroak is not that beneficial. The stored energy is really not that great. The Dragon Breath damage is just doing too much there. I do get the Galarian Stunfisk on the field, but it's able to see the matchup that it wants, and I am very suspect of the fact that there's probably an Azumarill in the back. This is a very common line, Altaria, Azumarill, Galarian Stunfisk, so we're going to have to see here. Altaria is still a big problem here. It's very healthy, so I'm going to bring in Sableye, and I think just fully commit to a farm down here. I no-shield that Rock Slide. I'm going to have to shield up one of these moves, but I really want to fully farm this down and have loaded energy. So if there is an Azumarill, I'm able to threaten it a little bit more with return. I actually switch into my Toxicroak here because I knew that they were going to get to a Rock Slide, so I catch it. I'm just doing anything I can to try to win this game, but I really think the best play was to just immediately switch in Sableye. They no-shield the Sludge Bomb, which was pretty wild. I'm going to throw this foul play. I have 2 foul plays banked. Let's see what they want to do. They do shield that. Oh, I was 1 away from foul play. So now I need to fully commit to Shadow Clawing this down. Their Stunfisk is out of energy and very low. I need there to be a Hypno or some sort of Psychic type in the back. It's actually their own Sableye, and unfortunately 1 foul play does not one-shot a Sableye, so I'm not going to be able to take this game. So definitely a misplay from me. I think the safest route is to just safe swap the Sableye immediately. That's not a good matchup for Toxicroak. You got to get out of there, but there's a prime example of me playing it differently and it not working out. Okay, the mirror match. So I've actually encountered a decent number of people actually running my exact team because they've seen my Twitch live streams and seen me talk about this. Again, I've been running this team for a while. And one thing that my opponent did, and they totally destroyed me with my own team, is they just no-shielded the Toxicroak in the lead because they knew that Toxicroak essentially has no play against the backline. That does not always work. I guess if you're playing against me and you already know my team in advance, then it works like that. But typically in the Toxicroak mirror match, I try to sneak in an extra counter if I can. If I notice that my opponent sneaks in an extra counter, I will typically try to catch a Mud Bomb on my Sableye. But they safe swapped Drifblim there, and Sableye is such a hard punish to Drifblim if you are fast on the swap. If that Drifblim gets a little bit too much of an energy advantage, it becomes a little sketchier for Sableye, and Sableye does win the CMP tie against Drifblim, so it's very imperative that you're able to swap fast to guarantee that you can throw the foul play before they throw the Shadow Ball. So my opponent brings out Stunfisk here, and my Skarmory gets to avoid it, which is just absolutely the dream. I knew that they were going to swap right there, so I immediately swap as well, and I'm able to catch a Mud Bomb on my Skarmory. At this point, there's nothing my opponent can do, and I'm able to take that game there. Good game. Toxicroak mirror match once again. Going to try to sneak an extra counter here. Again, if there's like any lag or I notice that my opponent gets an extra counter, I'm going to have to start getting fancy with my swaps, but I have the energy advantage here. So my opponent is very fancy with the swap, and this is actually kind of tough here because I'm down in shields. Throwing that energy on the Skarmory with my Toxicroak would not be great. So I can tank one Sky Attack, which is good for me, and I'm able to get to this foul play. Oh, I'm not able to get to that foul play. That really sucks, but I can bring in my own Skarmory, fully farm this down. If there is a Stunfisk in the back, this is pretty rough for me, but all of that energy that I have saved on my Toxicroak should come in handy. So it's unlikely that my opponent, they actually bring in Toxicroak here, and then they catch on their own Stunfisk. So they must have misclicked or something, like tried to preserve their Skarm. I'm not quite sure what happened, but they caught the Sky Attack, and now they're switch locked against my Toxicroak, and because I stored all this energy in the beginning, I'm just going to be able to unload on this Stunfisk. Essentially throwing 3 Mud Bombs here. I'm able to throw back to back there and avoid the Mud Shot getting through, which is good for me. And then at this point, I can just let this go, air slash it down with my own Skarmory, and their Toxicroak is pretty much useless in the back. They are going to throw some chip damage here with Mud Bomb, but I know shielded. I know that I can survive. And then I just no bubble this, and I'll be able to air slash down that Stunfisk there. Good game. The mirror match is always scary if there's any little bit of lag. Okay, this is the worst, one of the worst leads that you can see with this team, because this Pokemon essentially has play against everything. So what you kind of have to do is, sometimes your opponent will throw lunge, and if they do, you kind of have to be gutsy and no shield it. That's what I have found. These battles are a little bit older, so I was playing this a little bit differently at the time, because they lunged me on that first one. I call the lunge here, which is pretty huge. At this point, I need to swap to avoid being farmed down. This Galvantula is a problem. They switch into their own Azumarill. I do have a slight energy advantage here. I'm throwing the return right as the Azumarill is getting to 5 bubbles, essentially, and trying to force the CMP tie, but they're continuing to overfarm. Because that return went through, and they actually throw a play rough here, so even more energy, even more favorable for me. I'm farming as much as possible. I need this Sableye to try to take out that Galvantula as well, so I'm able to get this foul play off. That's great. Galvantula does not have a move stored yet, and Sableye is still healthy enough to do some chip damage. Out comes Stunfisk. My opponent throws Rock Slide immediately, and so I'm able to catch it on my Skarmory. I know this is kind of weird bringing a Skarmory onto a Stunfisk here, but I knew that they were going to try to like sack swap the Galvantula there, and so I wanted like an energy advantage. I still have some health on Toxicroak. I'm 1 Shadow Claw away from a foul play on Sableye, and this is really what's going to allow me to win this game. This chip damage with Skarmory is very nice. This Stunfisk is almost in foul play range, very close, but the counter damage plus the Shadow Claw and the foul play damage should seal the deal here. As you can see, 1 Shadow Claw away. I do win the CMP tie there against Stunfisk, able to take it out, and then actually switch into my Toxicroak to counter it down. Good game there. All right, Mew lead is also extremely tough. Typically, lately I've been going for some Mud Bomb baits here to see how they want to play it out. This is most likely a Flame Charge. They threw on 7. And they didn't stack back to back or anything. So a Mew that runs Flame Charge, typically after they get boosted, they are more inclined to preserve their health. So I throw a Mud Bomb bait. and then I swap to my Sableye. Unfortunately, my opponent is smart and stores their energy. Out comes Vigoroth. Vigoroth is not really a response to Sableye. Even though my Shadow Claws are double resisted, the counter is resisted, the Body Slam is double resisted, Bulldoze sucks. So I'm really just going to try to get to 2 foul plays here. But the unfortunate thing is, well, I'm actually able to Shadow Claw them down, which is good for me. They have a Pelipper in the back, so the only way that I'm going to be able to take out this Mew is if my Skarmory has a pretty significant energy advantage, because it's still very healthy. So I'm just bringing in the Skarmory. I can't shield any of this stuff up because I need to save it for the potential Flame Charge or Wild Charge from Mew. Because they stayed in there so long, this allowed me to get a lot of energy, which is good for me. I should have been more bold there and not shielded that first move, because even if it was Wild Charge, it probably would have taken me out from that range. But for some reason, my opponent no shields the Mew, and that just allows me to win the game there. There's definitely a mistake on their part. Mew is going to be their key to victory, but we're able to come back from that and still win that game there. Good game. Mew lead again. So sometimes they're running Surf Wild Charge, sometimes they're running Wild Charge Flame Charge. Those seem to be the 2 most typical movesets. I got a shield here. They are running Flame Charge, and so I'm farming up as much as possible. Counter and Shadow Claw both are the same turn duration. This person actually no shields, so I'm just going straight Mud Bomb here and gonna see what they want to do. They do shield that one, and so I immediately switch into Sableye. Totally fine that they're throwing energy here. I do not want this Mew to be loaded in the back end, and Flame Charge is totally fine. Here comes the Stunfisk. This is exactly what you want to see, because Skarmory does not have to see this anymore. And it logically makes sense for your opponent to bring in that Stunfisk after they've seen the Toxicroak, so it can avoid the Toxicroak. But all this really does is set your Skarmory up for a nice sweep in the back. I know that Mew has thrown its energy already, so I'm not as threatened by that. At this point, I will shield and try to counter down here. Man, they went for the big move. They went for the big move. Toxicroak is loaded here. They probably bring in Mew to try to farm some more. So I'm just going to immediately switch into Skarmory. They have an Azumarill in the back. So I have loaded energy on Toxicroak. That's going to be pretty good for the end game here. I know Mew does not quite have a moveset yet. And it looks like this Azu is rocking Ice Beam Play Rough. They still have a shield. I'm just going straight Sky Attack here. They let that one through. And I'm actually just going to go for the Brave Bird here and see what they want to do. They let it go through, which is a big mistake there. They tried to call the Sky Attack, but I did not bait there. And so I was able to take them out. Okay, Alola Marowak lead. Another really tough lead for this team. I tend to like to throw a Mud Bomb and then swap into my Sableye, because even if they throw a Shadow Ball or a Shadow Bone on my Sableye, I don't care. I just want them to dump energy here. Any energy they throw here is amazing for me. So I'll no shield this. It is a Shadow Ball. That's okay. They're staying in here. So that Bone Club probably would have been just barely enough to KO me. They're still staying in. So I will throw this Foul Play, see what they want to do. They let it go. Thank goodness. Okay, out comes Azumarill. Azumarill's at 2 bubbles now. It's always scary if they do have a Stunfisk in the back. So I am bringing my Skarmory out here. If you don't see a Stunfisk in the lead, it could be in the back. So I'm bringing my Skarmory onto this matchup, and it can tank the charge moves from Azumarill a little bit cleaner here. I can still survive this Ice Beam, no problem. I have so much energy stored here. I'm just going to go straight for the Brave Bird and see what they want to do about it. And I'm going to immediately switch into Toxicroak after this anyways. Again, to get a jump start on energies. Actually a Ferrothorn in the back. So, Mud Bomb hits for neutral. Sludge Bomb hits for single resisted because of that steel typing. So I'm just going straight Mud Bomb here. I will shield this up. I still have energy on my Skarmory, which is pretty nice. I'm not allowing any extra fast moves to come through from my opponent, which is good. And then out comes that Azumarill. I'm able to get to this Mud Bomb and take out that Azumarill. Able to come back from that Alola Marowak lead there, which is good for me. Good game. All right, Alola Marowak again. Not great. I need some mud bomb chip damage or at least get a shield advantage here. So I'm gonna throw the mud bomb before they're able to get to that shadow bone. This was not CMP. They're receiving the energy from that fire spin right now. So my opponent actually, this is where having return is really nice. My opponent stored all that energy on the Alola Marowak, which is very scary. I'm going straight for the return. It does get shielded. That's fine by me. I'm looking for a shield advantage anywhere that I can get, or just to nuke that secondary matchup. I recognize that I was not going to be able to get to a second return, but I'm hoping that my opponent thinks it is a return. They're too smart. They thought it was a foul play. I need an energy advantage on my Skarmory to threaten what's possibly in the back line. I feel like this is the Alola Marowak double grass line, and so actually preserving my Toxicroak for the Ferrothorn in the back is going to be pretty handy here. If they bring out the Alola Marowak, it's pretty low in health, so this is totally fine by me. Even if this is a Bone Club, I have to shield it up. It's unfortunate that it is, but that's a pretty heads-up play. And then they swap into their Ferrothorn to catch the Sky Attack. Very nice. But I'm going to be able to get my Toxicroak onto this. And I think I fully commit to the farm here, because this is going to allow me to threaten the Alola Marowak with Mud Bombs here. So they do get a Fire Spin through, unfortunate, but I'm very close to another Mud Bomb. They have to throw energy. And they're able to throw right here. Shadow Bone takes me out, and then I just need to Air Slash down this Alola Marowak. They're not quite out of Shadow Bone. I survive with a sliver of health, and I'm able to Air Slash that down. That was an insanely close game. Very good game. Skarmory lead, very tough. Insta swap into Sableye, see what they want to do about it. So they switch into a Azumarill. I only have a 1 Shadow Claws advantage. I have to, oh man, I do go for a foul play bait here. And this was like one of the few times it's been successful. I've been burned so many times from a failed foul play bait that I just tend to not do it anymore. They're also running Play Rough instead of throwing Ice Beam here, which even puts me at a greater energy advantage. So definitely not going to bait anymore that I got the first shield. They do double shield this, which is problematic because I don't think they're going to allow me to win swap here. I'm counting their fast moves. They actually give up swap. They were going to try to catch the return on their Skarmory, but this is amazing for me. I got to save all that energy on my Sableye, and my Toxicroak doesn't have to see this Skarmory. I'm assuming there's a Stunfisk in the back because we haven't seen it in the lead yet. And obviously this team would not want to see like a Bastiodon in the lead or something. So Stunfisk would give them coverage against that. In these mirror matches, I'm always trying to sneak in an extra fast move as much as I can. And essentially by doing that, all that means is that I'm just tapping my screen as fast as I can and trying to get that move through while my opponent is throwing their charge move. I'm even able to save my Skarmory there. They go for another aggressive swap, and Toxicroak is able to align with this Machamp. This is the dream, able to counter it down and give minimal farm to whatever comes in. Is the Skarmory going to throw the Mud Bomb here? Down goes the Skarmory. They still have their own Azumarill. But I have a return stored on my Sableye, and I would win the CMP tie there anyways. Return does massive damage to the Azumarill and is able to take it out. Able to flip that terrible lead into a victory there. Good game. This Galvantula lead again is really, really tough. And so, I think this is like the string of matches where I just run into bad leads over and over and over again. But for some reason, I won the CMP tie there, which is kind of weird. And I no-shield the lunge here. This is huge. If the opponent goes for discharge right off the bat, and you no-shield it, it's very hard to win. But you kind of have to bank on them misplaying and throwing the lunge. They safe swap Azumarill. I'm going to bring my Skarmory onto this. Up a shield. I'm feeling pretty safe about this. And I do need some residual energy to threaten that Galvantula when it comes back in. I'm pretty much at 100 energy here, so I'm going to throw the first Sky Attack. They let it go through. I'm going to let this go through because I know I can survive it. And then I'm going to let my Skarmory get as low as possible so that Galvantula cannot farm as much. It's only going to get one Volt Switch through. And I actually don't even allow the Galvantula to farm at all. I immediately switch into my Toxicroak, and they throw the lunge. They dump energy, so I'm looking pretty good here. I still have Skarmory. Gonna bring out Sableye, go for a pretty nice farm here. I have to shield this up. I know it's gonna be a lunge. It's gonna debuff me, which is not great. But I'm able to get a pretty significant energy advantage here. It's an Alolan Marowak in the back. Let's go. Sableye is able to sweep the back line here. Once Azumarill was off the field, Sableye had play against the back, which is really good for me. Even debuffed, these foul plays and Shadow Claws do so much damage. Look at that catch on the Skarmory as well. Nice little flex, not necessary at all, but man, any chance you can get to flex is pretty nice. I also cleared my debuff, so I'm able to take out that Alolan Marowak. Very good game. All right, Toxicroak into, oh man, these Deoxys leads are very tough because so many people, when they're running Deoxys in the lead, are now running Psycho Boost. Ugh, and it could be the Wallower triple counter team. So I still don't have like an extremely clean cut strategy of how I like to play this out. I like to throw the Sludge Bomb. They are running Psycho Boost. It takes 5 counters to get there. So as you can see, I'm going to, eventually I'm going to get into my Sableye. That's my eventual game plan, and if I can catch a move on the Sableye, it's even better. With Psycho Boost, it takes 5 counters to get there, so typically Deoxys, they're either going to stack back to back, which takes 10 counters, or that opponent actually threw it way earlier, and then I was just keeping track of how much energy they had and was able to time that swap. They bring out a Fortress. This is pretty spicy. Skarmory resists all this stuff, so I'm just going to get an energy advantage with Skarmory. My Sludge Bomb was able to land on the Defense Deoxys, and they're completely out of energy, so I'm not as worried about that. They bring out a Azumarill here. And I'm just going to go, oh man, I was going to go for the Brave Bird here, and I was actually queuing up the Brave Bird, but because my opponent switched there, it knocked it out of the queue. And so down goes the Deoxys. I'm feeling pretty confident that I can win this. I have so much energy on my Skarmory. There goes one shield. It's most likely an Ice Beam here. So I'm going to let it go through. I know I can survive. And then I'm building up some energy. I store a Brave Bird and then switch into my Toxicroak. I will shield up the big Hydro Pump. And at this point, overfarming. No need to throw Sludge Bomb right away because the Azumarill just dumped all of its energy with Hydro Pump. So there goes the last shield, and I essentially have put this Azumarill into Brave Bird range, which is great. Could have thrown the Mud Bomb there for even more chip damage, but that actually would have been a huge mistake because that would incline my opponent to bubble me all the way down. But Skarmory would win CMP anyways, so, but still able to take that game there. Good game. If you're still watching this video, props to you. I hope you're learning a lot about how to run this team. Man, it's been a lot of fun for me, for sure. This Deoxys lead is tough. And this opponent actually throws before I'm even able to get to the Sludge Bomb. So, and they go for Rock Slide. But again, I'm not still 100% confident that this is Rock Slide Thunderbolt. I feel like it's still Rock Slide Psycho Boost, so I'm scared. So I swap into Sableye to just absorb this damage. It's just another Rock Slide. And they bring out Bastiodon, man. This is amazing that my Skarmory doesn't have to see this. This is so great. And Sableye is going to do some decent chip damage here. So I'm going to throw another Foul Play. I do want to get some farm off of this. And so I stop attacking to preserve more health on the Bastiodon so I can get more farm coming off of it. I can survive this Flamethrower just barely. For some reason they go for Stone Edge, possibly because they want more farm on whatever they're going to bring in. They bring in the Deoxys again. I'm just going straight for the Sludge Bomb again, see what they want to do about it. They do shield, so I'm going to switch into my Skarmory. At this point, I'm fairly convinced that they might have Thunderbolt here. And so I know shield this, and it is a Rock Slide. And this Sky Attack is going to be barely enough to take out this Deoxys. Oh my gosh, they barely survived. And then in the back is a Meganium. This was just very fortunate team comp in the back line for me, and I was able to take that. Hypno lead is obviously terrible, so I'm going to immediately switch into Sableye. Another option I could have done there is throw one counter and then switch into Sableye because the confusion will not register on the Toxicroak. My opponent brings in a Meganium. I am generating energy at the same rate that Meganium is generating energy, and Frenzy Plant and Foul Play are the same energy cost. So we essentially get to our charge moves at the same rate, but I had a 1 Shadow Claw advantage. So I can win switch here, which I absolutely have to do. My Toxicroak cannot see Hypno. It's totally useless. So I go into a shield deficit here, but I'm able to farm it down. Really good for me. Let's see what they want to bring in. They actually bring in a Azumarill. So again, I'm always curious why my opponent did not bring in a Azumarill onto my Sableye in the first place, but their thought process was most likely they want their Meganium to avoid the Toxicroak. My opponent goes for a swap there, and I am right with it. I am able to get my Skarmory aligned with the Hypno. It is a Shadow Hypno, so these Thunder Punches are going to hurt. I'm going to throw this Brave Bird, really hoping that it KOs here. Able to hit the Excellent, and then they barely survive, but I'm able to Air Slash it down. That's really good for me. Azumarill cannot bubble me down without me getting to a move, so they do throw. And they really didn't overfarm at all. So at this point, I just need to get to a Sludge Bomb on Toxicroak, and this should be pretty clean here. I am keeping track of their energy here. I don't want to get hit by a Play Rough. So I catch the move on the Sableye. You absolutely love to see it. It was the Hydro Pump. Let's go. But they undercharged it to get some more farm. It doesn't even matter. Just going to throw this Sludge Bomb. And I'll be able to take that Azumarill. Lots of sacrificial swaps occurring. It's very important that you're always aware of how much energy your opponent has. This is a terrible lead. Gonna immediately switch into my Sableye and see what they want to do about it. They bring in Stunfisk. Okay, this is fine for me. I need to try to win switch here. I do have a 1 Shadow Claw advantage again, so I can potentially do that. If my opponent is smart, they go straight Rock Slide and they can win in the 2 shield. If there's ever a chance where I can shield up an Earthquake, this is pretty decent for me. And it looks like my opponent is missing out on some fast moves here. They definitely seem to be a little bit behind on energy. I get a shield there, and then Sableye wins CMP, so I'm able to see what they want to do if they want to burn both shields. They do double shield. And so at this point, I'm going to shield this. It is the Earthquake. I just need to get to this Foul Play. And they're actually able to get to a move right before there. And it's the Earthquake, man. So they went Rock Slide, Earthquake, Earthquake, and they were able to maintain switch. Really bad for me. I need an energy advantage with my Skarmory to threaten what is in the back. It's a Deoxys in the back, so this is really not looking good for me at all. I have to store up as much energy as possible here to try to threaten that Drifblim in the back. So I'm storing up as much as possible. I'm going to throw this Brave Bird and then switch into Toxicroak. Unfortunately, this is yet another Deoxys that is running Psycho Boost. So it one-shots my Toxicroak, and then they're very smart. They switch out, and I was really hoping that Brave Bird would one-shot this Drifblim, but it's just barely tanky enough to survive. Man, I was doing everything I could there. I was swapping. I was trying to mix it up, but they had very good alignment, and my opponent actually played that Stunfisk matchup pretty heads up there. All right, this is kind of an example of a less than common lead, so let's kind of see how I like to play this out. At this point, I'm going to shield the Hydro Cannon, obviously, because it's going to do a lot of damage. I think I'm going to go for a Mud Bomb bait here, see what they want to do. Always farming up as much as I can. There's no need for me to throw the charge move until I absolutely have to, so right before they get to their move. So I'm going to throw the Sludge Bomb here, see if they want to go down 2 shields. They let that go. That's fine with me. Out comes Mawile. This is really not that great. My Skarmory does not want to see this, so I have to bring in my Sableye onto this. These Shadow Claws are really chunking. I felt like this was going to be a heavy hitting move, and it is. It's the Iron Head, so that's a big shield. In the back is an Alola Marowak, so my Sableye is really going to have to be the key to victory here. I need to try to catch a move on my Skarmory, so I'm going to keep farming, keep farming. They did not throw right there, very unfortunate for me, but all I need to do is essentially throw a Sky Attack and then be able to Shadow Claw them down. They're also running Shadow Ball, which is not super great. I'm able to get to, I actually no bubble this because I recognize what my opponent is trying to do. They want to farm me down with their Mawile. So they stopped attacking there, which is why I no bubbled. And then they throw the Bone Club. Since they're running Shadow Ball, I'm actually going to be able to get to this Foul Play. I don't want to get hit by another move. And then this is going to allow me to take out the the Shadow Mawile. Just barely, very, very close game for sure. But it's kind of a heads-up play on my part, recognizing that my opponent intentionally wanted me to kill the Marowak so they could farm me down to Iron Head my Sableye, and I did not allow that to happen. Chestnut in the lead. This whole team just beats Chestnut very easily. Toxic Croak is such a wall to this thing. I'm just going straight for the Sludge Bomb, and I'm going to see what my opponent wants to do here. They do shield, so this is even more favorable for me. Skarmory is obviously a wall to this. Sableye is very strong against this. I'll shield up the first superpower, and then they switch into a Hex Alolan Marowak. I'm able to get my Sableye aligned with this, and this is very positive for me. Even if this is a Shadow Ball, doesn't matter. Sableye can tank it. Farming up as much as possible. Gonna throw the Foul Play right here and see what my opponent wants to do. They do shield, and then they're able to get to this move right before I'm able to get to the Foul Play. So I will shield this up. This is going to allow me to, this was actually false CMP somehow, but I'm going to throw this Foul Play and it takes him out. I most likely get farmed by the Chestnut here. Yep, because they're trying to Vine Whip me down, but I'm actually able to get to this Foul Play before they can Vine Whip me down, which is good for me. Down goes to Chestnut, and in the back is a Bastiodon, so I'm going to be able to get my Toxicroak aligned with this. Thank goodness that my Skarmory does not have to see this. And I go for the little disrespect flex with the Skarm here to take out the Bastiodon. I really don't like going up against Bastiodons. Toxicroak into Shadow Machamp. This whole team beats Shadow Machamp. Technically, Skarmory is the worst matchup. Or Skarmory doesn't want to see the Shadow Machamp just because Shadow Machamp can outpace it to the moves. But seeing it in the lead is really good for me. My opponent catches a Mud Bomb on the Tropius. That's a huge heads-up play, but Skarmory is such a hard punish to this. Again, this is a matchup where you can purely fast move down the entire way. And you're going to leave this with 100 energy. As long as the opponent does not have like a Galarian Stunfisk to hard punish this energy, then you're looking pretty good. If they do have a hard punish to the energy, I actually throw there because I want to preserve as much health on this Skarmory as possible. Oh yeah, and this battle is up against my friend Jonathan Kelly, so I actually knew what team he was running because we had built the team together the night before, so I knew he was running Machamp Double Flyer. That's why I preserved health on my Skarmory, because I knew it was actually going to have a lot of play against his team. So I go for the Brave Bird, and then I just safe swap the Sableye here to clear my defense debuff. And Sableye also has play against kind of this whole team. Out comes the Machamp again. I'll shield up whatever this is, fully farm down, and then I'll have a lot of energy to threaten the Skarmory. Unfortunately for John, this was just very hard counters pretty much the entire time. Nothing really he could do, especially Shadow Machamp just has no play against this team. I think here's another example of just the team comp really coming through. Sirfetch'd has nowhere to go against this team. In comes the Pelipper. I'm able to get my Skarmory on this. This Skarmory-Pelipper matchup is pretty interesting. Pelipper can actually win in the 2 shields, but Skarmory, you don't need to shield first, so you can kind of gauge what your opponent wants to do. You can actually shield fairly late in this matchup because those wing attacks are hardly doing any damage. Because my opponent no-shielded, this gives me the green light to no shield and fully farm down. We'll see what they want to bring in. They bring in an Alola Marowak, not great for me, but again, the alignment is just perfect here. Gonna throw the Brave Bird. It gets no shielded. Sableye is able to get on this. Toxicroak is able to get on the Sirfetch'd, and there's unfortunately nothing that my opponent can do. I don't even need to shield this. And I knew that they were going to switch at that point, so I immediately swap as well. And at this point, my opponent recognizes that the game is over. This is a very hard team comp win. And I'm just going to counter down the Marowak there. Good game. Toxicroak into Abomasnow. This is not as good as you would think. Also, so that they safe swap the Sableye, and again, I'm just unbelievably slow to make a decision on what I want to do in this scenario here, because I don't have a response to Sableye switch in. I should have gone into my Skarmory there. I go into my Skarmory there, which is nice, but I've essentially just kind of sacrificed my Toxicroak. If the opponent stays in with the Abomasnow, that means that they're weak to something. They're weak to Toxicroak in the back as well. But they did switch out, so I'm wondering what they have in the back. It's an Azumarill. So this is not that bad, especially because I have all this loaded energy. Just going straight for the Sky attacks here. And they do shield that up. Out comes the Abomasnow, and they're trying to get an extra farm, which is a pretty smart play by them. But I'm up in shield, so I can bring out my Sableye onto this matchup. And we'll see if they want to commit their last shield on the Abomasnow or the Azumarill. So they actually shield that up there. At this point, I need to try to farm down the Abomasnow. I knew that I would survive that just barely. Really hoping that I can Shadow Claw down here and get to the return. I'm one Shadow Claw away. But Azumarill does throw their energy here. And I'm very close to a Sludge Bomb on my Toxicroak, if I remember correctly. Oh man, I actually switch into my Skarmory. I'm barely able to get this Sky attack off, and I have the Sludge Bomb stored, and I do win CMP against the Azumarill. Could have gone for the Sludge Bomb there, but we just go for the Mud Bomb, throw some mud on the Azu there. Man, that was a very close game. Good game. I think this is another pretty solid example of the team comp just absolutely coming through. Hard counter. In comes the Drifblim. I'm able to align this very quickly. I knew this was just going to be an Icy Wind because he threw so fast. This gives me free reign to farm up even more. The problem is that I know the Obstagoon is going to come back in and really load up on energy. This, again, is where having Return is very nice. I have been debuffed in attack from that Icy Wind, but Return is still going to hit like a nuke. Able to get to this Return. If the Obstagoon is running Hyper Beam, I'm worried. But he fully farms me down. I'm able to get a last second foul play here, which is nice, but this Obstagoon is going to go on a tear. I have to make a big call here, whether or not this is a Hyper Beam. So they're throwing the move, and I say, no way. And thank goodness it was just a Night Slash. In the back is Tropius. Hard counter city. The team comp really put in the win there. Good game. Toxicroak into Obstagoon. Once again, very favorable. And there's a Venusaur safe swap. Skarmory is a hard punish to this. I have debated potentially running Stunfisk instead of Skarmory, but man, I love hard punishing grass switch-ins like this. This is another scenario where I can just fast move this all the way down, come out with a bunch of loaded energy. And they're somehow able to get to a Frenzy Plant at the last second there, but that's okay. Let's see what they bring in if it's a hard punish to this energy here. It's the Obstagoon again, so I'm just going to go straight for the Brave Bird. They no shield. It does so much damage. I'm going to throw the Sky attack here, see what they want to do. They probably shield this. They let it go. In the back is Hypno, and Sableye says goodbye to that. So another very solid team comp win. I think I have one more game in this video. Toxicroak and Meganium. This is not as favorable as you would think, because Toxicroak is definitely glassy in the Great League, and so even resisted Frenzy Plants still really hurt. Earthquake is obviously going to one-shot, but my counters are obviously doing way more damage than the Vine Whips are. I get baited there, not great. I'm just going for the Sludge here because I did not think that they would shield. They actually end up double shielding, so whatever they have in the back is weak to this Toxicroak. I will shield this, and they are going for the Earthquake, so I will now be able to farm this down, but they switch into Drifblim. Again, I'm able to get my hard punish of Sableye. I'm able to get the foul play off before they can get to the Shadow Ball because I was fast on the swap. Very important. It takes out the balloon, and I'm in a pretty favorable scenario here. Out comes the Stunfisk, and I have the alignment right where I need it. These foul plays are really going to chip away. so we can watch this match play out. But thank you everyone so much for watching. If you made it to the end of the video, like, post down below, I made it to the end of the video, because man, this was a really long video. Let me know if you appreciate that. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Give this team a try. A lot of people have actually been running it now since they've been tuning into my Twitch live streams, but it's really fun. I think I'm going to continue running it and climbing as much as I can this season with it. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.